Hey there, Brad Castor from GreatOptionTradingStrategies.com. I once had someone that I was in a relationship with tell me, although I no longer remember the larger conversation we were having, if I wanted the truth, I'd go somewhere else. Now, I found this statement to be very funny, but at the same time, kind of confusing. Was that a compliment? An insult? Commentary on the relationship? And if so, what was the commentary? In a similar way, with different ways of setting up covered calls, there are also implications that aren't always so obvious. Now, there are a lot of factors that go into selecting and setting up a covered call trade. But in this video, I'm only going to focus on the implications of selecting different strike prices. Quick reminder that a covered call trade is when you own shares of a stock and you sell someone the right to buy those shares from you, 100 shares for each contract, at a specific predetermined strike price. You collect the money up front, and if the stock is trading above the strike price at expiration, you're required to sell those shares at the strike price. That's the standard definition, of course, but allowing the covered call to automatically be exercised against you and having your shares called away isn't your only choice. You can always manage and try to repair the trade if you want to keep the shares, or at least work the strike price up so that you collect more of the capital gains. But that's a conversation for another day. Today, we're only going to go over the implications of different strike prices. Now, one of the analogies that I use for different aspects of option selling is that of a dial versus a switch. In the examples I'm going to be going over today, for instance, I'm not going to argue whether any of the setups are conservative or aggressive on an absolute basis, i.e. a switch. Instead, I'm going to make the case that you can take the same covered call trade and make it more conservative or more aggressive, i.e. a dial. Okay, if you'll indulge me a bit, I've got a little spreadsheet here that's really damn old, but it illustrates the concepts I'm going to go over very nicely. That's because Microsoft was trading exactly at $28 a share when I captured the option pricing for different strikes. So it's a super clean example when it comes to an in-the-money strike price, an at-the-money strike price, and an out-of-the-money strike price. And yes, I'm aware of the fact that in hindsight, no one should have been selling covered calls on Microsoft when it was trading at $28 a share back in 2011. The correct trade was to back up the truck and buy and hold forever as many shares as possible. But I digress. So let's look at the three basic choices here. The in-the-money $27 strike, the at-the-money $28 strike, and the out-of-the-money $29 strike. Now, my sense is that a lot of covered call writers would be attracted to the out-of-the-money strike. The advantage there is you get some covered call premium, but you also retain the right to more of the stock's potential capital appreciation. In the Microsoft example here, buying shares at 28 and then selling or writing a $29 covered call brings in 49 cents a contract of premium. If the stock ended at expiration above $29 a share, in addition to that 49 cents a contract of premium, you'd also pick up $1 share of additional gains from selling your $28 shares for $29. So your max gains then on the out-of-the-money covered call would be $149. Next up is the at-the-money $28 strike price. In this case, you collect more upfront premium at 91 cents a contract, which is nearly double the extrinsic or time value available on the $29 strike. And that's because option pricing 101, the strikes nearest the current share price will always have the most time value. But if the stock trades higher, you would get zero capital appreciation. If Microsoft was trading above $28 a share at expiration, you would simply be selling those shares at the same price you purchased them. So your max gains on the at-the-money covered call would be $91, or roughly 2/3 of the max gains available on the out-of-the-money covered call. Finally, we've got the in-the-money $27 strike. Now, this is where things get a little interesting. You're actually collecting the highest amount of premium by selling the $27 in-the-money covered call at $1.52 a contract. But that's because $1 contract of that is intrinsic value. And if the stock is trading above $27 a share at expiration, you're not going to be able to keep that. If you buy shares at $28 a share and then sell them at expiration for $27 a share, you're losing $1 a share, which balances out the $1 of contract of intrinsic value you collected when setting up the $27 covered call. That means your max potential gains, assuming Microsoft was trading above $27 a share at expiration, would be the 52 cents a contract of extrinsic or time value that you initially collected. So your max potential gains with the $27 covered call would be $52, or only around 1/3 of the max gains on the out-of-the-money $29 covered call. Now, at first glance, it might seem that going with the out-of-the-money covered call is the best move because the potential gains are so much higher. And there are perfectly valid reasons for selling out-of-the-money covered calls, especially if you want to hold on to your shares and just use covered calls to squeeze out a little more income from them. But strictly in terms of using covered calls as an income strategy, the deeper in the money you sell covered calls, the more you turn your risk dial to a lower setting. And the more you sell covered calls farther out of the money at a higher strike price, the more you turn your risk dial to a higher setting. And we can see that in two key ways: your break even and the odds of assignment. First, if you check out the table here, you can see that the break even is lowest on the $27 strike price. You pay $28 a share for the stock, less the $1.52 contract of total premium, so that if the stock sells off, you have a break-even or adjusted cost basis on the shares of $26.48 a share. That works out to be 5.43% downside protection, by the way. Now, with the $28 at-the-money strike price, your break-even is $28 a share, less than 91 cents a contract of net premium collected, or $27.09 a share, a 3.25% downside buffer. Finally, the out-of-the-money $29 strike has the highest break-even at $27.51 a share. That's because you paid $28 a share for the stock and only collected 49 cents a contract in premium, which only lowers your break-even by 1.75%. Second, the lower the strike price, the more likely the covered call will end in the money and the shares will be called away from you. And if you're trading covered calls primarily for income, that's what you want. I call it designed to be assigned. In the out-of-the-money $29 strike price example, the stock has to trade higher for you to bank anything more than that original 49 cents a contract of premium. If the stock ended lower at expiration, but still finished above $27 a share, your returns with the in-the-money $27 strike actually would be higher because you collect a little more extrinsic or time value at 52 cents a contract versus 49 cents a contract. Okay, again, I understand that there may be different objectives when it comes to covered call writing, but the point of this video is just to focus exclusively on the impact that in-the-money, at-the-money, and out-of-the-money strikes have on covered call trades, and why in-the-money is the more conservative choice in terms of downside protection and higher odds of a successful trade. Also, one final point that not everyone realizes, but an in-the-money covered call is essentially the equivalent of selling an out-of-the-money cash secured put. I plan to put together a separate video exploring and explaining this, but if you take the Microsoft example, while I no longer have the data from 14 years ago, but with the stock trading at $28 a share, you would have collected more or less the same amount of time value that was available on the covered call side of things if you'd sold puts at the $27, $28, or $29 strikes. I'll go over this in more detail in a future video, and there can be some subtle differences depending on whether an ex-dividend date is involved and also the current interest rate environment. But again, covered calls and selling cash secured puts are essentially the same trade. Okay, if you have any questions about anything or would like me to clarify anything, please let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this and would like more option selling resources, you might want to check out my Great Option Trading Strategies website, link in the description below. The site's been around for 17 years now, and you're not going to find a more comprehensive collection of free, quality option trading resources, from downloadable special reports and trade case studies to hundreds of articles on selling options for income, as well as incorporating options into value investing and dividend growth investing portfolios. I also have a section on the site devoted to covered calls, so you might want to check that out too. And again, links in the description below. Best of all, no annoying pop-up ads, and you're not going to get spammed every time you turn around. There's also a contact form on the site if you want to reach out directly and have a more private conversation. I'd love to hear from you either via the site or in the comment section below. Okay, until next time.